Silver just smashed through $109. Matter of fact, I think it topped 110, and silver investors couldn't be happier. There are some people that aren't happy. There are people that watched videos that I put out a little while ago talking about how to take profits. When something that you bought doubles or triples, pull your initial investment back, take that win. And there are people that are melting down all over the internet, saying if I wouldn't have listened to you, I would have been able to pay off my house or do this or that. To be honest with you, I can't even believe half the comments are true. But I'll tell you this, it brings up a story that I've told before. I want to tell it again. It's the time that I had the biggest transformation when it came to finances and flipping money, because all I ever did was lose money in the stock market, in the silver market, because I started investing, at $18 before it ran up to its second, $48, $49 top in 2011, around that area. And when I learned this lesson in 2017, this is when I want to tell you the story, it changed my life forever. And what happened back then when I sold my Bitcoin and I bought silver, Bitcoin kept taking off. But this is the exact same story that's playing out right now in silver. And it's the exact same story that played out a little while ago in XRP. A lot of people maybe here own XRP. If you do, let me know down below. And let me know can you let people know that you watched me do this probably about 25 times, where I said, hey, I've sold half of my XRP. It was around $2.20. Because I'd been talking about it since it was 18 cents or 25 cents, around that area. Sorry, 4,500 videos. I don't remember everything. And XRP kept going up from $2.20. As a matter of fact, it's bringing back a lot of memories. So it went up, kept going up to like $3.50. And the whole time people told me how foolish I was, or if they would have sold back then, they would have missed out on a fortune. Just the other day, somebody on YouTube decided to do a video about me and talking about how foolish I was when it comes to this kind of stuff, where I'm talking about one thing or saying to sell another, and yet they themselves on that video admitted I'm down. They're down in XRP. They kept buying all the way up, and then boom, look where it is now, I think $1.90. And just so you know, I'm not telling you to sell your silver for Bitcoin, because I've been saying for months now that I believe that Bitcoin is going to go even lower and lower and lower. And I've been explaining how I'm over 50% in cash right now, just waiting for that, because I'm waiting for the low 70s, hopefully mid 60s in Bitcoin, meaning the whole market's going to be even way lower. So now you look at the XRP holders, and as they were mocking and yelling, they're now down, right? Okay, I'm not mocking them. I'm just stating the facts. Go back to XCN. That's another one we talked about. We bought it a quarter of a penny. By the time it had hit 4.5 cents, first off, actually, when it actually went up 4 times, I started talking about pull back your initial investment. Pull back your initial investment if this is all that you put in. That's a really big difference. With people that are pretty well off, that have a lot of money, they don't need to do that. But there are a lot of people, especially with silver, they put everything they have into it. I see people that comment, they're like, this is the largest investment I have, and I've got 10 ounces. And that's nothing to mock. That's actually incredible. Because for the first time, somebody decided to invest their money or their fiat currency into something, right? They took it as capital and they invested it in something, and it's growing, and that's to be celebrated. But the sad part is that most people don't take that win at a certain point and pull back. They become emotionally tied to it. So with the XRP losers, I'm sorry, the XRP people that are now in the losing position, not XRP losers, I still own some XRP. So see what happens when you're live? You can't be AI all the time and be completely polished. But the people that are down position, hopefully they're happy because they're buying it lower, and they'll take advantage of the next run, because every single asset class has runs and then drops, runs and then drops. Even the housing market does. Over the long term, it looks like the housing market's always going up. But this thing right here, on a month-to-month or a yearly basis or a multi-year basis, these pops and drops can be pretty substantial. So as silver's going up, we're seeing the exact same thing, saying it's going to the moon, it's going up forever. Yes, do I agree it's going to be worth a lot someday? Absolutely. Just like housing, it's going to do this, right? But silver's pops and drops are more pronounced on a 30-year chart. If you pull it back, 40-year. Pull back silver, look at a 40-year chart, and you'll see what I mean. So let me get to my story. In 2017, I bought Bitcoin. I'm going to be honest with you. I had been completely wrecked in most investments I'd ever made because I was emotional when it came to them. I thought they were going to go up forever. I'd hold all the way to the bottom. Something changed, and I can't pinpoint what it was. But when I bought my first Bitcoin, I invested $10,000. I bought I split it up into thirds. 1/3 Bitcoin at $500. I took the other third of that $10,000 and I bought Ethereum at $50 even. It was so weird. 1/10 of Bitcoin's price exactly. And then I bought XRP at 2 cents. All right. The next week, my entire portfolio fell by like 25%. It got hammered in a week. Now, everybody that invests in crypto knows the swings, the wild swings. But even back then, it was more pronounced because there was less volume. It destroyed me mentally. But what I decided that time, for the first time ever, I decided not to sell it, not to get emotional, not to get scared. And I'm going to be honest, I was scared. My wife had just witnessed me putting $10,000 in after I'd lost $60,000 in the stock market around 2015. And it had caused a lot of problems between us. And so she would ask how it was going, and I'd say just fine. And I would just hold it in. And it was the worst feeling I'd ever felt. The stress of, oh my gosh, am I going to lose this again? But I held. Fast forward, that was in April of 2017. I bought it in I'm getting my timelines mixed up. I bought it at the beginning of January or something like that of 2017. So a little while later, it had been down. It stayed down for a while. Fast forward to September, I believe it was. My memory escapes me. Bitcoin, Ethereum, the whole crypto market, XRP had been on a tear. And my $10,000 turned into $100,000. And I was so excited. But from the $10,000 up to the 100, I was feeling that exuberance, that irrational exuberance. It's going to the moon. It's going up. I was reading comments on videos on YouTube, on chat forums and stuff. Everything was exciting. But something in me, for the first time ever, there was a check inside. It said, you've got something for the first time. You know what it's like. When you bought Apple, it went up and then it dropped. And when you bought Price and it went up and it dropped. All these things that you'd done and they fell and you had a win, but you didn't take it. And so I took it. And out of that $100,000 portfolio, what I did was I pulled out $40,000. And I'll never forget this. I told my wife, I said, today is the last day we will ever lose on an investment. And she goes, yeah, right. And she'd been through a lot. I always wanted to be rich and I always wanted to do all this stuff. And I said, this is the last time, because today I'm pulling out 4 times what we invested in. 4 times the amount of money, right? I invested $10,000, I was pulling out $40,000. Now I had to pay tax on those gains, right? To realize them as gains. I get that. So I had less than the 40,000, but that's not the point. I pulled out the win. And what I did is I bought silver with it. And I wrote on it exactly what I'd done with that, to never let me forget the Bitcoin win, the crypto win. I still have that to this day. I don't remember what I paid for it per ounce. It was around September of 2017, so you can look up the chart of silver, and that's what I paid for it. But it didn't matter to me because I'd now recorded a win. And it felt so good and so different. I said, this is all I'm going to ever do. So when I started doing YouTube, I started talking about that a lot. I'm curious, how many of you, type yes or no if you remembered me talking about always taking the win and telling that Bitcoin story to silver. Now you look at silver, and that silver, whatever I bought it for, is now worth, $109 per ounce, right? That's not the point. It's not like, hey, look at what I did. It's look at the lesson I had to learn, the hard lessons. Now you fast forward to when I'm doing YouTubes and I'm talking about cryptos, and I just told the XRP story. The XCN story was more dramatic. I told people in my newsletter about it, and then I told the channel about it at about 0.5 of a cent. And it ran and ran and ran. And at a certain point, I said, start pulling back your initial investment. Start pulling it back. Oh, it's going to the moon. Well, it did. It kept going, kept going. And then some bad news came out about it around the 4.5 cent range or 4.2 cent range. I did a video on it. And I said, hey, this is not good news, but then there's still a bunch of good news that the company's putting out, but I don't like what I see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back 50%, half of everything I've got in that thing, and pull it out. And I suggest, I couldn't give suggestions, but I'm like, hey, and people are like, oh, it's going to the moon. If you look at the comments of that video, some of these days I'm going to do a mash of all these videos. Because the comment section is just roasting me, how it's going to the moon. And then it started to trickle down, but it took like a week before it started to trend down. So people had lots of time. Then more news came out that I didn't like. And I brought it up. Hey guys, I'm going to pull back 30% of my current position. Remember, I already cut it in half. I'm going to pull back 30%. It was like a month later. And it was at a much lower price. And then I did a video about that again. Hey guys, I'm going to pull some more out. And these are lower positions, but people couldn't go, but I'm losing. I'm losing right now, because what happens is, and I've had friends tell me before, I'm like, how's your portfolio, dude? I'm down like 50%. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? You've been into this asset or investment for X amount of months or years. And I'm like, what do you mean you're down? What's it worth? And they would tell me the amount, right? And I go, wait a minute, you invested this much and it's this much. So yeah, but I'm down 50%. And I'm all, are you talking about from when it was at its all-time high? And they would say yes, because people would lock in that as that's how much it's worth. That's how much they are worth, because of the asset is worth that much. But that's not the truth. It's not worth anything unless you sell it. Anything. And that's the most important thing. Theta is another example. When I was brand new on YouTube, I came out and I was part of their validator node beta test program. I was really into Theta, and I was doing all these. I had a company that all we did was run validator nodes and all this stuff. So I was part of their beta program. And I bought it under 10 cents. I want to 5, 7, 9 cents. I don't remember the amount, but anyway, it ran up to like 90 cents. I said, hey guys, I'm pulling mine out and I'm going to put it into something else. I'm going to take that win. Holy cow. Was I shocked when 3 months later it's at $15. You want to talk about a gut check time, because for that was the only time I'd pulled all of it out, pulled it all off the table. And I had that gut check time. I didn't have anything left for it to run up to $15. And I never did that again. Never did that again. And so I went back to the pull back your initial investment, or pull back 2 or 3 times, or whatever, as fast as it runs, you pull back something. And, but people mocked all the way up, right? And I don't know how many people sold it's good for them. Boy, the people that sold, I'd already made what was it, like 15x return or 14x return on that. And I missed that next, multiple. And a lot of people had just bought it at 80 cents or 90 cents, and they saw that next, 14, 15x multiple. But my point being in all of this is that if you blame anyone for your decisions on selling something or when you bought something, that is on you. That's got to be one of the most childish things I've ever heard in my life. And if people don't understand, hey, look at that, silver's at $111. It's smoking. That's awesome. And, if you can't, make your own decisions, you probably shouldn't be investing, right? I had to make my own decision that day when Bitcoin was at whatever price it was, and I pulled back that $40,000 in my crypto to buy silver. And as crypto exploded, just so you know, if I would have kept all that $100,000 in Bitcoin, it would have ran to $1.6 million that year. Okay. It was an interesting emotion I went through, because it was like, oh man, but if I would have just held. But the other side of my mind spoke up when I would say that, and it said, but if it didn't go up, you would have lost. And that was a pivotal turning point in my financial life that changed forever. I think this is really important. Pete, I'm going to go through and remake you a moderator. YouTube's been messing with me and even taking moderators down. It's getting pretty wild. There's probably a reason for that, but that's okay. Praise God. Ninja's here. And the thing, and and I'm saying that for myself, not for you. I'm keeping myself positive. I want people to take win after win after win. If you measure your wins, that's going to be a hard thing because you're always going to look at what could have been because your mind is built for that. Our mind is eternally optimistic. And a lot of the times it's to our detriment because we don't have a safety net set up off to the side. That's why a lot of Americans, a lot of humans don't have a big savings account because they don't think it'll ever happen to them. As a firefighter, I can't tell you how many structure fires I'd roll up to. And after we'd extinguish the flames, they would always say it out loud. I can't believe it happened to us. It was just human emotion coming out, and it was so true. It's so true. I can't believe it happened to us. That's why it's important to have insurance, whether it be actual insurance, savings accounts, different investments, not living life like paycheck to paycheck. And that's how we look at our investments. I hope you got something out of this. There are some people who think this is complete nonsense because they're just riding a wave right now. But just like every single wave, it crashes. And that's the most important thing I can get through to you. Then I've done my job. They all crash in a moment on a long-term trend because of inflation and the destruction of the purchasing power of our currency. It looks like it's always going up because it's all being inflated away. But you have to understand, people lose their life savings as it's going up on these ticks, these peaks and these valleys. Don't be like that. Don't think what it could have been. Think about how you just won. Little win, little win. There's another wave coming. There's another wave coming. There's another wave coming. And every time you take that win, you have that much more money for the next wave. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. The Economic Ninja is out.